Welcome to J Sports YouTube. I'm here, host Joe Chap, Detroit Lions News Podcast. I'll have your whole season recap coming up pretty soon, but let's talk about the Lions because I thought a lot of people were puffing smoke up your guys' ass, and I didn't appreciate it because I thought it was a little bit out of touch. I thought it was little bit out of character, and honestly, if we're going to be honest, they were out of touch realistic expectations. So a lot of people are claiming this season a failure because the Lions didn't go to Super Bowl and win it. And I look, you can have any expectation you want. I expected the Lions to go to the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year. I expected them to win the Super Bowl over the Houston Texans. I said it on the same podcast a couple months ago. But as the dominoes started to fall, and as the players started to fall, like Hutch, like Barnes, like Ali McNeil, like Anzalone, like Rodrigo, like Carlton Davis, like Davenport, it's too much. And looking at the talent on the defensive side of the ball, it was pretty irresponsible for me to say that this was a Super Bowl or bust team. Expectations change throughout the year. Your expectations don't always remain the same that they once were. So as a realistic commentator on this team, I didn't think the Detroit Lions were a Super Bowl team after the Buffalo game. And I said it as much so right here. I said, if the Lions have lived on the edge, but if Liam and Carlton Davis are out indefinitely, the Super Bowl dream is dead. The Lions won't quit because of the culture, but to get to the Super Bowl and win, you need luck every year to win because the battle of attrition is so big. This is too much to overcome. As sad as it is to say, Dan Campbell knows it because he wants to squeeze every possession with a score. He won't admit it publicly, but talent wins, and most of the Lions' talent is on IR. I said that. And, here's the thing. Dan Campbell is never going to make excuses. He'll never make excuses. He'll never make excuses for his team. He just won't do it. And he said so right here.
We're not taking excuses, and you can't, because once you let that in the door, then everything's an excuse, And
Yep.
those guys, whoever you are, we're going to give you a chance to make a play and help us do your job, but you gotta hold up your end of the bargain and go balls to the wall.
So as you heard right there, Dan Campbell was not going to make excuses for himself. He was not going to make excuses for this team. He was not going to make excuses for the roster. He wasn't doing it. He just wasn't going to do it. And, he said this on 97 The Ticket. And ironically, he said this to the people that believe the most that this is a Super Bowl winning team. And I'll play this for you.
And look, I don't. You know what happens is, you win 11 in a row, and you lose, and then the sky falls. And I hate to say it, but we're not going to be able to win 11 in a row again for the rest of this season. We're just not going to be able to do it. And, what happens is you get used to eating filet, and I'm talking to all of us, and everything's good. Life's good, but you forgot what it was like when you had nothing and you ate your fucking molded bread, and it was just fine, and it gave you everything you needed. And sometimes you got to get punched in the mouth and remember what it used to be like to really appreciate where you are. And we'll do that. And so we got a bad taste in our mouth. We got kicked around the other day. We lost a few guys. And you know what? It's exactly what we needed. This is exactly what we needed. So we're going to bounce back. We're going to respond. We got guys that are about to have an unbelievable opportunity here. And we will play the game any way needed to win. We still got a good offense. We got plenty of defensive players. I can go rattle them off right now. We're going to put the best 11 on the field. We're going to freaking cut it loose. We're going to play with our special teams. And I don't give a crap if we got to win by 1 point for the rest of the year. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to be happy about it. We come out of the game with 50 yards of total offense and we win by 1, you're going to see smiles on my face. I promise you. All right? If it's the other way defensively, we give up 700 yards and we win by 1 point, you're going to see a fucking smile from my ear to ear. All right? I can promise you. So we're going to find a way and we're going to get it done.
So there you heard Dan Campbell talk about, what the expectations are, who has an unbelievable opportunity to win a position, be a contributor to this team. And look, that's all great. But once you get to the playoffs, that's where, things start to unravel because you are asking an offense who is great. This offense is phenomenal. This offense with Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, all the guys that it has, the elite offensive line, you're asking them to be perfect. I can't ask them to be perfect. I can literally say to you, with realistic expectations. I cannot expect the offense to go out there every week and score 30 points a game minimum to win a football game. Because when you talk about some of the best teams in the NFC, obviously the Commanders beat the Detroit Lions. That's all fine and dandy. But like, look, the Eagles, they have a top defense. What would they have done to Detroit? And what would the Eagles offense do to the Detroit Lions defense? I don't view the Eagles offense like a juggernaut. I think there's one player on that team that is very, very good, and that's Saquon Barkley. But I cannot sit here and say with confidence that the Detroit Lions would have stopped the Philadelphia Eagles. There's no McNeil, there is no Hutch, there's no Barnes, there's no Rodrigo, and there was no Carlton Davis. And once you lost Amik Robertson in that game against the Commanders, I did not think the Detroit Lions were going to have a shot to win that game because there was just too many bodies that have fallen. And you would need perfect health to get to the end of the line, which is a Super Bowl. Because obviously you had so many guys on IR or who have missed 3 games plus. This is an amazing list. Look at the defensive line. McNeil, Hutch, Davenport, Pascal's a depth piece. Mekhi Wingo's a depth piece. Kyle Pecco's a depth piece. Broderick Martin's a depth piece. Kaminsky, you lost him in training camp. You look at the names on this list, and it's hard. It is very, very hard for the Detroit Lions to push it, sweep it around, and just you think that it's the same expectations. There was no way you could ever say that you thought with all the injuries that the Detroit Lions suffered that it was a failure of the season. There's no way. There's no possible way you could say that. Because if you think it's a failure of a season, well, I got news for you. In the NFL, it's such a minute difference between the 7th seed to the 1st seed. There's a little bit of a difference. And if one part of that is off, you're going home. It's a one game over. And when your defense is ailing, like the Detroit Lions defense was ailing late in the season, and your offense is asked to score 30 plus points a game and be perfect, that's a hard bargain, man. That is a very, very hard bargain to do. I feel for Aaron Glenn because Aaron Glenn did everything he could for this defense, but ultimately it came down to 2 things: talent and the amount of talent on the roster that was at the end of the year. And no matter what anybody said, I heard, people from Woodward Sports, and I still won't take it, Jim Costa and John Jansen, they're feeling bullish about the Super Bowl, and good for them. But there's just no way you could say you expected a Super Bowl with the amount of defensive players missing. I know next man up is this, this moniker that's used in sports all the time, but how many next man up can you use? Like, how many can you really use? I mean, you had like 4 or 5 starters alone that are out for the year. McNeil, Carlton, Hutch, Davenport, Derek Barnes. Rodrigo is another starter because Derek Barnes went out. So, look, I can sit here until I'm blue in the face and say that this season wasn't a failure and give you the reasons why. But obviously, there's a lot of people that think that this season was a failure, and I can't sit here and say to you this was a successful season because it wasn't. But when you got to the Buffalo game and you've seen exactly what you're losing, and you've seen your defense against a great quarterback in Josh Allen, and you put up 42 points, you played a pretty decent game. But in order to win a Super Bowl, you gotta be lucky and you gotta be good at the right time. And unfortunately for the Detroit Lions, the offense laid an egg and they still scored 31 points and they lost because the defense they didn't have enough bodies, just simply put. And I can't put that as a failure of a season because there's no way on earth you could replicate this. This was one of the worst seasons for injuries I've ever seen from any football team. I mean, this was earlier in the year. At one point, the Detroit Lions had 22 players on IR. The only playoff team that to make the playoffs with 12 or more was the Chargers. So that tells you exactly where this team was at this point in time. And honestly, look, I think the Lions are going to be good for a couple of years, I think they're on track. Their window is open. I don't believe in this whole window because the window can change with one player being drafted. But for people to say it's a failure of a season, it's kind of irresponsible. It's kind of dumb. And to be honest, I don't buy it one bit because there's no way you looked at all the injuries that are happening and you said to me, if they don't win a Super Bowl with the amount of injuries that they have on the defensive side of the ball, it's a failure of a season. There's no way you could tell me that. There's no way you can confidently tell me that you expect the offense to score 30 points a game and the defense should just be decent. And they scored 31 points against the Commanders, and they still lost. So that tells you everything you need to know about what this defense was at the end of the year. And sadly, that's the way this season ended because of just bad luck. It's just bad luck. The amount of broken bones, a broken jaw, torn ACLs, like it happened all at one time, and it's a lot of it is just bad luck, total bad luck. And honestly, if we're gonna be totally honest with each other, it sucks because this is a team that could have went the distance if they just had a few more pieces back. And Alex Anzalone came back at the end of the year, but he even said after the game that he was playing with a broken wrist. So that's tough. To think that this Detroit Lions team was going to win with the amount of injuries they had is just foolish. It truly is. But I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments what you think about this Detroit Lions team. Was it a failure of a season or was it not a failure of a season? And then I'll talk to you on the Detroit Lions News podcast either Thursday or Sunday, which will be out for Monday morning for you guys. Thank you for listening to the Detroit Lions News podcast. I'm Jay Sports. Subscribe for all Detroit sports news as we go through the offseason and Detroit Lions. We're Red Wings content, Tigers content, obviously Lions draft content. So stick around for that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.